Hello again, everyone. Welcome to On Silver Screen, where learning is interesting. This is your host, Silver De La Rosa, and today we will talk about Design and Build and Public-Private Partnership, or PPP. Please support this channel by dropping a like to the video, sharing this video to your friends, especially those who are preparing for their APC. And if you haven't done yet, please subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Our objectives for this discussion are the following. First, we would like to understand the design and build procurement route, what are its variants, the contractor's responsibility, the advantages and disadvantages of this route, and the organizational structure. Similarly, we would also like to understand how public-private partnership works, particularly the Private Finance Initiative, or PFI. We want to know the advantages and disadvantages of PFI, at the same time the organizational structure of PFI. So let us begin with design and build procurement route. This is a procurement route where the design and construction process is combined under a single entity or contractor, who will assume the risk and responsibility for designing and building the project, usually in turn of a fixed price lump sum. I would like to highlight usually, because there are still several types of contract that are applicable to design and build. It's not only fixed price lump sum. So the sequence of activities under D&B are that first, the tender can commence even before the design is completed or even there is a design at hand. And once the contract is awarded to a contractor, the design can be completed by the contractor, but the client has a limited control over the design. In some instances, the client can also hire a client team to provide a concept design, and this concept design will be the basis of contractor's submission. Because of these overlapping works, the time to complete this project will be shorter compared to other routes. And because also that the client has a limited control over the design, and the time to complete is shorter because of overlapping works, the emphasis of this route is on cost and time. Design and build procurement route has several variants. It could range from complete package, where the contractor will be left to interpret the requirements of the client, and in some cases, the contractor will be responsible for obtaining the planning permission or even project funding. The client have little influence over the design once the contractor's interpretation of client's brief is agreed. And there is also another variant called develop and construct. In this variant, the client will employ a design team to carry out some preliminary design work and prepare project brief, and other tender documents including employer's requirements. The contractor develops a design from the detailed brief or specification provided by the client. And the contractor assumes responsibility of completing the detailed design and constructing the works. This provides the client a strong position to ensure that their interpretation of specification takes preference over the contractor's interpretation. And sometimes, the successful contractor will assume responsibility of the design team initially hired by the client and agrees to novate the contract the client has with his or her designers to the contractor. So we have several terms here. We have employer's requirement and novate. Let's dig a little bit deeper to understand what are these terms meant. Client's requirement are documents produced by the employer to set out its requirement in relation to the project. These documents may include performance specifications, drawings, initial designs, and so on. The client's requirement will be the basis of contractor's tender submission. Novate or novation is the transfer of rights and obligations that one party has under a contract to a third party. It allows for risk and obligations to be transferred and not just the rights. Another way to transfer the rights under the contract to a third party is through assignment of the contract. Assignment is the transfer only of rights that one party has under a contract to a third party. Since only the rights are transferred under the assignment of contract, the original party to the contract still retains the risk and responsibility that he has under the contract. We will talk more about novation and assignment in our future video about contract practice. Please watch out for this video. Let us now talk about the contractor's design responsibility under the design and build procurement route. Design and build contractor may have legal duty to provide the employer with a building that is fit for its purpose. This is significantly higher duty than that assumed by a designer under a traditional route, where the requirement is simply one of due skill and care. Now we have several terms here: fit for its purpose and due skill and care. Let's find out what does these terms implies. Due skill and care is a contractual obligation to carry out the works with reasonable skill and care. This creates a performance obligation, which is equivalent to standard of care in negligence. So how can a contractor prove that he is not negligent, or he carried out the works with due skill and care? The common law test for negligence provides that a contractor is not negligent if he carries out his work to the same standard that another reasonably competent member of the industry would have met. So meaning that if a contractor can prove that other competent contractors would have done the same as he did, then he carried out the works with due skill and care. Fitness for purpose, on the other hand, is an obligation to impose a duty of result. The contractor, or design and build contractor, will be held to that obligation, regardless of the reason why the work or design does not meet its intended purpose. In other words, matters beyond the control of the contractor will not excuse the contractor from that obligation, unless there is a contractual terms to the contrary, of course. This takes the contractor or designer beyond the duty to exercise reasonable skill and care in carrying out the works, and instead impose an absolute obligation to produce result. So this is an onerous obligation and one that is uninsurable. As a quantity surveyor, you must see to it that the client understands the implication of these terms in order for the client to make an informed decision as it comes with pros and cons. For example, even though it looks advantageous for the client to impose a fitness for purpose obligation to the contractor, this may result for the client to pay more money to the contractor. It should also be noted that it may be difficult, if not too expensive, for a contractor to secure an insurance with this condition. Thus, it would deter a contractor that could provide a value for client's money to participate in the tender. These are only few words in the contract but has a greater impact, particularly in the financial aspect of the project. You might have noticed that the further we dive deeper into the competencies of a quantity surveyor, we tend to encounter more legal terms. This is because that a QS does not only deals with quantification, but also with contract practice as well. We will talk more of contract practice in the future. Let us now talk about the advantages of design and build procurement route. The first advantage is that there is only a single point of contact for the client. Thus, the client has only to deal with one firm, giving single point of responsibility and significantly reducing the need to commit resources. And also because of the single point of contact, the client's risk is reduced. Next is that constructors' expertise can be utilized in the design and project planning, because this strategy enables an integrated constructor contribution to the design and planning of the project. Next advantage is that the price certainty is generally obtained before the contract starts. That is, of course, provided that the client's requirements are adequately specified and changes will not be introduced. And the total time to complete the project may be reduced because of overlapping of activities. So these are the advantages of design and build procurement route. Let us now see what are the disadvantages of this procurement route. First is that the client may face difficulty in preparing a comprehensive brief or employer's requirement. This is true particularly to the client who are not accustomed to construction. They find it difficult to describe or what is it really that they want. The next disadvantage is that the client is required to commit to a concept design at an early stage. especially that the detailed design are not even completed or not even started during this early stage. The client has little to no control over the design of the project. Therefore, the quality may be compromised as the client relinquishes its control to the design and build contractor. Bids are difficult to compare because each design will be different, and prices and the project program will vary depending on design. There is no design evaluation unless a separate consultant are appointed by the client for this purpose. The next disadvantage is that changes introduced by the client will be expensive, and the design liability is limited to the standard contracts available. Last is that this route may result to a project having less aesthetic appeal, where price and space dictate how the available budget will be spent. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of design and build procurement route. Let us now take a look at the organizational structure of design and build procurement route. The client will hire an advisor or client's team. These advisors will only be directly linked to the client, and their objective may include the preparation of preliminary or concept drawings, project brief, and contract documents. If a complete design and build package will be taken by the client advisors may be responsible for reviewing the contractor's proposal, including the contract prior to finalization. The client then will hire the contractor or will have a contract with the contractor, and the architect, structural engineer, quantity surveyor, and other building services professionals will be all directly under the contractor or will have a contract direct with the contractor. The same as the subcontractors and suppliers, they will all be directly under the contractor. During the course of the construction, the client may hire an employer's agent, and this employer's agent will only have a limited agency powers over the contractor. So this is the organizational structure of design and build procurement route. Let us now go to public-private partnership or PPP, particularly on private finance initiative or PFI. PPP is a collaboration between the public and private sector for the delivery of public service and infrastructure. PPP can take various forms, the common of which are private finance initiative or PFIs, concessions, and joint ventures. Other forms of PPP may include integrators, strategic infrastructure partnerships, and other hybrid approaches. Note that all PFIs are PPPs, but not all PPPs are PFIs, because again, there are other forms of PPPs available. And in this discussion, we are going to focus on private finance initiative or PFI. Let us now take a closer look at public finance initiative or PFI. A PFI project involves a long-term contractual arrangement, usually of 25 to 30 years, between public and private sector parties through a concession agreement. And the characteristics of PFIs are: the private sector agrees to finance, build, and operate an infrastructure project such as hospitals, schools, roads, and so on. Even a prison institution can be carried out through PFI procurement route. And a PFI is a long-term life cycle investment and includes routine maintenance services. Sometimes it may come together with soft services such as catering and cleaning. The public or the public sector will use the project without the need to engage with its operation. And usually, a PFI is achieved through the creation of special purpose vehicle or SPV. Now let us take a look at what is this SPV all about and understand this mechanism. An SPV is a company specifically created for the purpose of the PFI project. And it is also responsible for receiving the payment stream over the life of the concession from the public sector, subject to the delivery of services of the specifications set out in the concession agreement. Payment may be either in a form of collection of toll money, annual or unitary payment from public sector. Do note that there is no payment for poor delivery or performance of the project. The only downside is that if the contractor delivers a poorly performing project, they may not also be able to achieve their targeted income stream. Let us now take a look at the advantages of PFI procurement route. Why is it that governments are interested in undertaking infrastructure projects under this scheme? The first advantage is that the infrastructure project can be obtained without placing a capital burden on the public purse. Second, there is a transfer of risk from public sector to the private sector. And the next advantage is that there is an engagement with the skills and deficiencies of the private sector, and perhaps therefore could give a better value for money of the public. So these are the advantages of the PFI procurement route, but there are also disadvantages in this procurement route. Let's see what are these. The first disadvantage is that it may be considered to be relatively expensive approach compared with other routes. This is because that under the PFI scheme, the project will be fully financed by the private sector. So the risks are also carried by the private sector. Therefore, it will be a bit expensive compared to other routes. The next disadvantage is that the cost of preparing bids can be exceptionally high. Then the government, in effect the taxpayer, is committed to making payments for the life of the concession, which is typically between 25 to 30 years, unless the income flow is entirely dependent on cash tolls. Let us now discuss the organizational structure of PFI and see how it works. The host government will have their advisors, which will provide guidance to the host government on matters pertaining to the project. And once everything is approved, the host government will then have a concession agreement with the SPV. The designers, constructors, specialists, suppliers, operators, and other entities that are involved in the project will be under the SPV umbrella. The SPV will then look for funding. Some of it will come from sponsors or equity shareholders, which will have a share or stake in the SPV. Additional funding may be obtained from lenders, which will have a long-term agreement with the SPV. There will also be insurers that will provide insurance policies for the project. If it is a non-toll-based project, the host government will provide payment to the SPV in a form of annual or unitary payment, which may include shadow tolls. To explain what is a shadow toll, let's take, for example, a non-toll road project. The payment will be made by the host government based on the type and number of vehicles that uses the project. It is the host government that will pay the SPV, and the payment will not be directly collected from the end users. Now, if it is a toll-based project, the cash tolls will be collected by the SPV as their stream of income. So this is how the PFI concession agreement works. Join me next on Silver Screen as we discuss on construction management and management contracting procurement routes. Please support this channel by dropping a like on the video and sharing the video to your friends. Also, if you haven't done yet, please subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified once I upload a new video. Thank you for watching and see you next episode.